Would the Liang Empire still be led by the Xiao family? That was the exact question that most people had that night. The entire Zhuli army was ever so quiet. The soldiers had not wavered in the slightest about the rumors. As the cold moonlight basked the entire encampment in a silvery glow, one could see that the grounds for practice were completely devoid of people. The veil to Xiao's main tent shook, and a person who wore a black robe covering the entire face walked in. Xiao happened to be drinking on his desk, wearing common brown clothes. With his hair unkempt and his collar unbuttoned, one could see his bronze-colored chest muscles. This was a rare sight of roughness from this general. Seeing the visitor, he frowned ever so slightly, but did not speak. The veil to Xiao's main tent shook, and a person who wore a black robe covering the entire face walked in. Xiao happened to be drinking on his desk, wearing common brown clothes. With his hair unkempt and his collar unbuttoned, one could see his bronze-colored chest muscles. This was a rare sight of roughness from this general. Seeing the visitor, he frowned ever so slightly, but did not speak. The visitor took off the cap, revealing a beautiful face, and lightly smiling, she said, "Drinking in the middle of the night, as far as I know, is a breach of military law." Seeing her, Xiao did not talk, and merely continued to drink. Chu Chao walked up and sat down before him. Lifting her head up slightly, she asked, "Are you not going to invite me to drink?" With a clank, Xiao casually threw a wine cup over. He did not bother pouring for Chu Chao. Chu Chao was unfazed as she earnestly poured a cup and downed it in one gulp, only to feel the full brunt of the alcohol. It was as though she had just swallowed a chunk of red-hot coal. Frowning, she said, "Such strong liquor." Seeing that Xiao was still not speaking, she got a tad serious and asked, "If I had not come to find you, would you never have come to look for me?" Xiao lightly lifted up a brow and gazed at her before quietly asking, "I am feeling quite strange. How could you still be smiling and laughing?" "Why not? This situation is so much better than that time we had to defend Beishuo." Looking at her, Xiao suddenly turned away and chuckled. "Indeed, it is so much better. With so much power, it would be much better." Chu Chao leaned forward, and her eyes gleamed like stars shining in midnight, as she coldly asked, "Xiao, do you think I am such a person?" Although he knew the situation, there was a certain anger and frustration that he could not suppress no matter what. Xiao stared right into Chu Chao's eyes. In the cold expression, there was rage, but there was also sympathy. Chu Chao got into a half-kneel as she leaned over and whispered some words by the man's ears. Xiao did not mind too much initially, but suddenly his expression changed drastically. Lifting his head in a jerk, he glared at this daring woman. "Xiao." Chu Chao smiled at him, and in a calmness that was never seen before. She asked, "Are you willing to help me?" This young general thought for a long time before finally revealing a smile. Stretching out his hand, they high-fived and gave each other a firm handshake, just like the old days. As night descended once again, there was a group rushing on the path. Suddenly, another group appeared before them. The leading man pulled on the horse reins. As the incoming horse dashed past, the men on the incoming group suddenly halted and dropped down from the horse and loudly hailed, "Fourth young master." That night was really destined to be a sleepless night. Countless forces clashed in the camouflage of darkness, quietly waiting for the ceremony. The night seemed like an eternity. As the rooster welcomed the next day, the sun rose, immediately basking the entire world in the glory of the golden rays. In the palace, the king of Runan, whose hair had almost entirely turned white, read out the will of the deceased emperor, after which, trembling, he knelt down. Wearing an auspicious dress that was donned with embroideries of the phoenix and clouds, Chu Chao donned a headdress that was made from 18 pieces of ruby jade. On her waist there was a golden belt that was tinged with a royal purple. As this was a marriage with the deceased emperor, even this auspicious dress was mainly black in color, and the multicolored phoenix was also embroidered with darker colors, with gold threads used only scarcely for the clouds, and much of the chosen jewels were those dark in color. With that dress, Chu Chao seemed neat and proper, yet there was a sense of gloom that made people avert their eyes. As the Phoenix carriage started the journey from the main palace, it passed by Zhangyu Square, Rose Street, Anhua Gate, Taiking Gate, Tai'an Gate, and even headed out of the Jinwu Palace and entered the Qingyun Road, where only the richest dwelled, before turning round Tianqi Street and heading to the Phoenix stand at the ancestral temple. Along the entire route, the civilians all knelt down, calling out words of deference, with their heads deeply buried in the ground. As the entourage passed by, it kicked up a cloud of dust that at first glance seemed like a sandstorm. In the falling autumn leaves, black clouds covered the entire Liang capital. The sky seemed ever so blue and tall, and the sun seemed ever so far away. Everything looked so scenic that it seemed like a masterpiece from an expert artist. The glory of the empire seemed to cover and conceal the layers of blood that flowed on the path to ascension. As the carriage stopped, one could see that the Phoenix stand, with the 366 steps of jade staircase, was almost 100 feet tall. Standing on it, one could see all of Tangjing. Even the majesty Jinwu Palace seemed to pale in comparison. The Chu family is blessed to have produced such an outstanding heir to the family. They are benevolent, well-learned, and respectful. They are virtuous and kind people who are harmonious and cultured. With this, Chu Chao is given the title of Royal Imperial Concubine. She will supervise the country's affairs to ensure its prosperity. A loud, stern voice reverberated across the brightly lit landscape. A crown made of pure gold was placed in front of the ancestral temple's altar. Objects like the imperial jade seal, brushes were placed alongside the crown. Those were objects that anybody would die to own, for it signified the holder's wealth and power. Upon taking another step forward, she would hold those items in her hands. No one in the world would be able to hurt her easily anymore. She stood atop the Phoenix stand, looking at the numerous shadows kneeling under her. She saw jealousy, resentment, fright, fear, hesitation, and a tinge of expectation amongst those shadows. But nothing made her feel warm inside. The jade steps below her feet were cold, and so was the sunlight. The scholar from the Department of Rites knelt in front of her with a letter seal in his hands. The man, who was about 70 years old, lowered his head as his aging knees trembled. The wind blew past the eagles circling in the sky. She looked up at the majestic, red city gates of the Liang capital. The gates, which had experienced countless storms over the past hundreds of years, seemed to stare back at her in anticipation of this historic moment. As long as she received that item, she would hold absolute power over a quarter of this world. That instant, she seemingly saw that pair of eyes again, with its trademark cold look on the outside, but with passion on the inside. His face was handsome as he gestured. "Remember to wait for me. Remember, wait for me." The siren to signal the start of the coronation ceremony suddenly blared out. Outside the Liang capital, A solitary warhorse stood at the entrance of a bridge. The wilted, yellow autumn grass swayed with the wind as the sunlight projected its golden rays onto the barren wasteland. He was dressed in purple with his hair neatly combed. He was handsome and had a deep look in his eyes. A gust of wind blew past him, with some air entering into a bell he hung by his neck, causing it to let out some soft words. "Remember, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you."